now on BBC iPlayer.
Now at 1, the BBC News with Ben Brown.
Today at 1, Scotland's First Minister has announced he is resigning. In the last hour, Humza Yousaf, who had been facing 2 votes of no confidence, said he is stepping down as SNP leader and First Minister.
I am not willing to trade my values and principles or do deals with whomever simply for retaining power.
It was an emotional statement from Humza Yousaf. Now the focus shifts to who'll succeed him.
Yes, we'll have the very latest from Edinburgh and also from Westminster. Also this lunchtime, big changes to disability benefits proposed by the government, but campaigners say it's a reckless assault on disabled people. Police warn schools about the dangers of so-called sextortion when pupils are tricked into sharing intimate pictures and then blackmails. And for the first time, Premier League football clubs discuss a salary cap for their players.
On BBC London, their first ever chance to vote. We speak to young Londoners about what issues matter to them ahead of the mayoral election on Thursday.
Good afternoon, and we start with dramatic political developments in Edinburgh, where in the last hour, Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf has announced that he is resigning. He's been under growing pressure after he ripped up a power-sharing deal with the Scottish Green Party. As a result, he had been facing 2 separate votes of no confidence this week. Well, in an emotional statement a short time ago, Mr Yousaf said he's not willing to trade his values and principles simply to hold on to power. Let's go to our Scotland editor, James Cook, who's in Edinburgh for us now. And this was a pretty emotional statement, as we say. Humza Yousaf pretty close to tears at the end of that statement.
Yes, he was, Ben, as you say, emotional as he thanked his wife in particular, who was sitting in the front row just a couple of seats along from me. She was smiling encouragingly at him, but he was emotional, as well he might be, because he survived in office as First Minister of Scotland for barely a year, and it's been a very difficult period for him. He had been facing these votes of no confidence expected later in the week, and he had various paths he could try to negotiate down to survive, but they were narrow paths. One of them was to try to secure the support of Ash Regan, the Alba Party MSP from Alex Salmond's Alba Party. He only needed the vote of one member of the opposition to get him over the line in the confidence vote in his leadership. But I was told repeatedly by sources close to the First Minister that there was no question of their doing a deal with Mr Salmond, a man with whom they had fallen out spectacularly in recent years. Nor was it apparently a possibility for them to get a deal with the Scottish Greens. He ejected them from government here just over, less than a week ago. They were very, very upset by the way they were chucked out of the government and by the way he ended their power-sharing deal, and they made it very clear they were not prepared to come back, which basically pretty much spelt the end of the road for him, as my colleague Lorna Gordon can now tell us.
Under pressure and out of time, Humza Yousaf facing judgment on his future, jumping before he was pushed.
A route through this week's motion of no confidence was absolutely possible. I am not willing to trade my values and principles or do deals with whomever simply for retaining power. Therefore, after spending the weekend reflecting on what is best for my party, for the government and for the country I lead, I've concluded that repairing our relationship across the political divide can only be done with someone else at the helm. I have therefore informed the SNP's National Secretary of my intention to stand down as party leader and ask that she commences a leadership contest for my replacement as soon as possible.
This was a First Minister reflecting, admitting he'd underestimated the level of hurt inflicted on his former partners in government and emotional about the toll leading the country had taken on those around him.
Politics can be a brutal business. It takes its toll on your physical and mental health. Your family suffer alongside you. I am in absolute debt to my wonderful wife, my beautiful children, and my wider family for putting up with me over the years.
Time started running out for Humza Yousaf when he unceremoniously sacked the Scottish Greens from government late last week. With a policy announcement the next day about housing, he came out fighting. But it quickly became clear his attempt to look strong in power had left him fatally weakened and facing two motions of no confidence in him and his government.
Minister, that was clear, just like he failed as Transport Secretary, Justice Secretary and Health Secretary. But he has let the people of Scotland down, making Scotland the highest tax part of the United Kingdom. NHS waiting times spiralled out of control while he was in charge, and we need to get a focus back on Scotland's economy.
Humza Yousaf made history when he became Scotland's youngest First Minister and the first Scots Asian to hold the role. But he's had a turbulent time in power. The ongoing police investigation into his party's finances overshadowing efforts to make his mark. He's also had to ditch controversial policies such as the bottle deposit return scheme, lost a legal battle with the UK government over gender law, and 2 weeks ago watered down key climate change commitments. So who might replace him? Could Jenny Gilruth or Mary McCallan throw their hat into the ring? Kate Forbes was defeated by Humza Yousaf in the contest last year to become leader. Might she stand again? Neil Gray's name is also being mentioned, as is Stephen Flynn, although he's at Westminster. And what about John Swinney? Speaking earlier, he wasn't giving much away.
Obviously there's a lot to happen today, so I think we should probably wait to hear what the First Minister's got to say today.
Humza Yousaf remains as First Minister until a successor can be found. In office for barely a year, he said he was honoured and grateful to have had the opportunity to lead. Lorna Gordon, BBC News.
And we can go live now to Westminster and join our political correspondent Nick Eardley, who's there for us. Nick, huge political developments in Scotland. What are the implications, the wider implications for UK politics?
Well, there are a couple of things to bear in mind, Ben. Firstly, the SNP are the third biggest party in Westminster. They have a significant number of Scottish seats, and that is up in the air just now. Labour are adamant that they can start to win back a lot of support in Scotland, and the fact that the last 12 months has been so tumultuous for the Scottish Government will help Labour. The second is that the debate that the SNP projects onto the rest of the UK often has quite a big impact. When the SNP are strong, that independence debate is a significant part of the UK discussion. It hasn't been for the past couple of years, partly because the SNP have been on the back foot. So the question over the next few days and weeks as the party tries to close this chapter and open a new one is what direction it wants to go. You heard Lorna there talk about some of the front runners. The two names that keep being brought up to me this morning are John Swinney, who hasn't ruled it out, who hasn't spoken since Humza Yousaf resigned, but I think is keeping that door open, and Kate Forbes, who Mr Yousaf beat in the leadership election last year. The two could potentially take the SNP in different political directions, and that would of course have an impact on UK politics.
Nick, thank you very much. Nick Eardley there, our political correspondent. Well, other news now, and the government is proposing major changes to disability benefits. They would mean that people suffering from depression or anxiety could stop getting cash payments. The government wants the Personal Independence Payment, or PIP as it's known, to be more targeted. But the disability charity Scope says the proposals are a reckless assault on disabled people. Here's our disability correspondent, Nikki Fox.
The main thing I use my PIP for is my wheelchair accessible vehicle.
PIP helps me pay for our easy cook and ready meals.
It enabled me to get my powered wheelchair because I didn't qualify for Motability. I use it every day. It's given me so much more freedom.
Life for disabled people is expensive, with many using Personal Independence Payments, or PIP, to help cover the extra costs that come with having a disability. 2.6 million working-age disabled people, or those with a long-term health condition, receive it. But now the government wants to bring those numbers down, with a particular focus on mental health. Paul has been receiving PIP since 2016, when he was diagnosed by his GP with anxiety and depression.
I had a lot of negative thoughts. I used to call myself zero because I had zero money coming in, I had no job.
More than 5,000 people a month receive PIP for conditions like Paul's. The government says, as a result, the benefits bill is rising at an unsustainable rate.
I've done counselling. I mean, the problem is that I've sort of exhausted what the NHS can offer, so we are sort of reliant on trying to find ways of managing my mental health. It does just help a little bit. I mean, it doesn't solve the problems. It's not a miracle cure. It doesn't mean that we can go off on holidays and, live this frivolous lifestyle.
Fundamental belief.
The government says spending on PIP is expected to grow by 52% to £32.8 billion in 4 years' time.
And we're also going to make sure that our PIP system is supporting people that it needs to in the right way. And then in particular that it deals with mental health conditions in an appropriate way and whether those people are getting the support that they actually need.
Any plans to change the way PIP is delivered has angered disability charities, like Scope, who has described the proposals as a reckless attack on disabled people.
I think yet again the government have highlighted that they believe disabled people are an expensive problem. I don't think they've really offered anything in the way of a credible solution. I think we're also extremely worried that the government are conflating an extra cost payment, PIP, with out-of-work benefits. They're completely different things. PIP is a lifeline for many disabled people.
Paul will wait to see what this all means for him when the consultation closes in 12 weeks' time. Labour says it wants to see a system that allows disabled people to live independently. Nikki Fox, BBC News.
In the last hour, the National Crime Agency has issued an unprecedented alert to all schools in the UK, warning about the danger to pupils of so-called sextortion. That's when criminals trick young people into sharing intimate images of themselves online and then blackmail their victims for cash. Well, police say there has been an alarming increase in the number of cases. Angus Crawford has this report.
Just 16, Murray Dowie ended his life. Criminals posing as a girl online tricked him into sending compromising pictures. Then they blackmailed him. He couldn't bear it.
They've totally destroyed our family. Murray was a happy, normal teenager. He was driven to take his own life by whatever threats and awful things that the people that were trying to extort money out of him were saying to him.
Hey, how are you doing?
What happened to Murray is called sextortion. Gangs pose as young men or women, send explicit videos or pictures to targets they identify via social media. They demand the same in return. Then
the film will be shared with your friends, your family, your workmates,
everyone you know.
Unless you pay.
Today, in an unprecedented move, the National Crime Agency issued an alert to schools across the UK about this growing threat. The NCA is warning that criminals are increasingly targeting young people, especially teenage boys. It's mainly done by gangs based in West Africa or Southeast Asia. Their aim? Terrify children into handing over as much money as they can.
It can have an absolutely devastating effect on young people. This is why we are issuing this alert. We want people to take it extremely seriously, but we don't want them to panic. So there are definitely things that parents can do, conversations that can be had. It's really important that children know that they're never to blame.
We've been reporting on the dangers of this for years. How scared were you at the time?
Oh, frozen.
Contacting the criminals online. So you're probably moments away from being scammed?
Yep, literally minutes away.
In Ivory Coast, police showed us files full of British victims. We even met a man who made his living from sextortion.
You do real harm to the victims. Tu fais vraiment du mal.
Du mal, ouais. But what's really disturbing for teachers and parents is how young the victims are now. Keeping them safe on social media is a daily challenge.
Never presume it couldn't happen here. Presume it could happen. I think be vigilant, set up some really good, clear parameters, allow students to be part of that process so that it's not being done to them but done with them.
Today's alert by the NCA strikes a chord with 14-year-old Josh.
I think that's definitely a big step in the right direction because I think people need to be made aware of this sort of thing. It is quite easy to get into these sorts of bad situations.
From a mother who lost a son, a plea to other young people.
My message would be, please don't do what Murray did. Nothing is worth taking your own life for nothing. No matter how terrified and awful you're feeling at the moment, that will pass and this can be fixed.
Angus Crawford, BBC News.
And if you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised in that report by Angus, BBC Action Line has information on organisations that can help. Talks are due to take place between British and Irish ministers amid an escalating row over asylum seekers travelling from Northern Ireland into the Republic. The Irish government has said it will not provide a loophole for the migration challenges faced by other countries. Let's go live now to Westminster and join our political correspondent Hannah Miller. Hannah, just give us more details about this and the background to this issue.
Yeah, so the Irish government has suggested that it will pass what it calls emergency legislation. They say to ensure that any asylum seekers who pass from the UK into Ireland can then be returned. They claim that 80% of recent asylum cases in the country have arrived from Northern Ireland, crossing the border there. Now, this morning, the Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris has been meeting with the Irish Deputy Prime Minister here in London. It was a scheduled meeting. It wasn't supposed to be specifically about this issue, but at a press conference which is actually still going on at the moment, it's already been suggested that this was a significant issue that came up, with lots of emphasis on wanting to work together. The UK's position is that many asylum seekers who arrive here in the UK have passed through France, and bluntly they suggest that if France isn't going to accept returns from the UK, why should the UK accept returns from the EU, from Ireland? But it suits both sides to be having this row to some extent at the moment, because it allows Rishi Sunak here in Westminster to claim that his deterrent, his Rwanda policy might already be having some impact.
Hannah, thank you. Hannah Miller. Now, as of today, companies are facing new import checks and charges for food and plants from the European Union because of Brexit. Well, the BBC's Ben Boulos has been visiting businesses around the country to find out what the changes mean for them.
Weighing up the cost of importing cheese. This shop in South London has been doing it for 30 years, but new charges for checks at the UK border due to Brexit are pushing up those costs from today.
As a business, we will have to maintain our margins, so we'll probably have to put our prices up.
The new import charges will affect all fresh produce coming from the EU to the UK. That's meat, fish and dairy products. Each type of product in a single shipment will face a charge of up to £29. If a business is importing multiple types of products, say cheese and meat, it'll pay for each category, up to a maximum of £145 per consignment. Extra costs that could well be passed on to us as customers. The charges also apply to plants, seeds and flowers imported from the EU. That'll affect businesses like this garden centre in Surrey. So what worries them most?
Financially and waiting times. Waiting times are the biggest. Our business model is based on speed and efficiency. And if that's taken away, that's only going to be more detrimental to the company.
And there are similar concerns at this cafe and deli in Tunbridge Wells, which imports food and wine from Italy.
I will have to pay high prices to bring my goods in, and those prices will be passed to the consumer. The products we sell, I can't go and buy anywhere else.
The government says the charges will help to pay for world-class border facilities, adding that the checks are needed to ensure the quality and safety of imports to protect food supply, farmers and the environment. Ben Boulos, BBC News.
The French actor Gérard Depardieu is being questioned at a Paris police station after being placed under formal investigation over 2 allegations of sexual assault. The 75-year-old has been accused of molesting 2 women on film sets. Depardieu already faces a rape charge as well as claims of assault by more than a dozen women, all of which he has strongly denied. There's a new push for a ceasefire deal in Gaza. Israel has made fresh proposals for a truce and a hostage release agreement, and Hamas is said to have no major issues with the plan. Well, a delegation from Hamas is to attend talks in Egypt today. Meanwhile, the UN and humanitarian officials say that the war in Gaza has brought it to the brink of famine. From Jerusalem, our Middle East correspondent Yolan Nell reports, and just a warning, you may find parts of her report upsetting.
Every day in Gaza brings more casualties, more suffering, with children among the victims of the latest Israeli airstrikes in Rafah. And if Israel does go ahead with a threatened new offensive here, there are fears that many more displaced Palestinians could be killed. Now, though, Israeli ministers say their military plan for Rafah could be suspended if there's a new hostage release deal. For weeks, talks on a deal have been stuck, with Hamas demanding a full ceasefire before it will release hostages, and Israel saying it will only agree to a pause in the fighting. Mediators have been trying to bridge that gap as a Hamas delegation returns to Cairo. A now familiar visitor, the US top diplomat Antony Blinken is back in the Middle East, joining a World Economic Forum meeting in Riyadh. Regional stability and a possible ceasefire in Gaza dominate talks.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas.
With much of the territory reduced to rubble, Gaza remains on the brink of famine, UN officials say. Massive amounts of food are desperately needed. Today did bring an encouraging step as the US charity World Central Kitchen restarted work. It had suspended its meal service 4 weeks ago after an Israeli airstrike killed 7 of its aid workers. The US now says more supplies are entering Gaza.
This increase in aid is a result of increased efforts, among them opening the Israeli port of Ashdod and a new crossing that was opened into northern Gaza.
Israel says it's still hitting Hamas, nearly 7 months on from its deadly attacks on southern Israel. But there's now a new burst of diplomacy pushing to stop the fighting. Yolan Nell, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Here, MPs will debate assisted dying for the first time in almost 2 years today, after a petition backed by Dame Esther Rantzen secured more than 200,000 signatures. Assisted suicide is currently illegal in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. In Scotland, whilst it's not a specific criminal offence, those who help others to end their lives do risk being charged with murder or other offences. Our correspondent Graham Satchell has this report.
Esther Rantzen's daughter, Rebecca Wilcox, in Downing Street, delivering a petition with 200,000 signatures demanding a change in the law to allow assisted dying. Dame Esther has terminal lung cancer and wants the choice to have what she calls a dignified death.
The peace it would give our family and my mum to know that her future has a dignified, pay-free end. It's huge. I know I keep saying the word huge, but it's just so massive that it's beyond words.
Campaigners say any new law would have strict safeguards. Assisted dying would only be available for mentally competent adults with a terminal illness and would require 2 doctors to confirm the person is expected to die within 6 months. Opponents of assisted dying say however the law is constructed, it could put unbearable pressure on the more vulnerable. Disability campaigner Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson fears changing the law could see some people being coerced into pursuing assisted dying.
There's a huge number of people who aren't vocal, who don't feel they have choice, who feel they're a burden, and are really worried, certainly around disabled people, are worried that if the law does change, then they will be encouraged to end their lives, whether they've got a terminal diagnosis or not.
Today's debate in Westminster Hall comes as other jurisdictions in the British Isles are actively considering a change in the law. Scotland, the Isle of Man and Jersey are all currently debating whether to legalise assisted dying. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Clubs in the top flight of English football are discussing the potential introduction of a salary cap for the first time. The plan would see spending on wages for all clubs linked to the television revenue of the Premier League's bottom teams. Well, our sports correspondent Katie Gornall is in Salford with more details. Katie.
Well, Ben, the league has committed to changing the current profit and sustainability rules, which have proved hugely controversial and have seen Everton and Nottingham Forest docked points this season. Now, the current financial system under discussion is this concept of anchoring. It would see clubs' investment in their squad linked to the broadcast revenue of the lowest ranked side. So, for example, last season, Southampton brought in around £100 million in TV revenue. Clubs could be linked to, say, 5 times that. Still a huge amount of money, but it would effectively mean a strict salary cap, which in theory could make the league more open, more balanced. Now, not all clubs are in favour of this. We understand that Manchester United are opposed to the plan, but the majority of clubs are thought to be on board, the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, for example. So this potentially could be introduced the season after next, if approved, but today is very much the first step.
We'll see what happens. Katie, thank you very much. Now, migraines can be debilitating for the 6 million people in the UK who suffer from them. But now the Migraine Trust wants employers to make adjustments to help staff who are affected by them. Well, the BBC's Tim Muffet went to meet one woman who's been living with migraines for years, but has only recently sought help at work and is already seeing the benefits that can have.
Maria has a great job, which she loves, but her migraines have had a huge impact on her life and her career.
She's such a lovely girl, isn't she? It's a tightening in my neck and then a really heavy, severe throbbing pain all across my forehead. You feel almost like your head's in a clamp and it's being really squeezed. I have them sort of 30 to 50% of the time.
What impact has this had on your life?
A huge impact. There are so many occasions and events, conversations, that I don't remember, couldn't fully participate in, have just felt like, I've not really been able to contribute in the way that I would typically. I just haven't been able to fulfill my potential in life. I do feel robbed. Morning, everyone. I work from home, but I have meetings all of the time. Apologies, I've got a bit of a migraine today, so I'm just going to have my ice pack on. I'm, very confident to have ice packs on the back of my neck and my head during meetings. People are very understanding. It just helps to be able to just continue with meetings rather than change them or reschedule them. Brightness and glare can be triggering, but also can make the pain worse when you have a migraine. So IT were able to kind of access my machine remotely and look at what those settings were, show me how to change them myself so that during a migraine attack I might want to change them beyond what the normal settings are, if that would help. They talked about the importance of background lighting.
I think it's really important that other employers consider this. If you've got a great employee and you want to keep them employed, you want to help them to do a good job, then it's really important to build in some flexibility if you can. For Maria, her migraine is really extreme. I've got massive sympathy for her trying to cope.
Hopefully some food for thought.
How important is it, do you think, that other employers do what this place is doing?
It's hugely important. It's just normalising that this is a condition many people live with and they need to do certain things to just get through the day. Just feeling understood often is what allows me to better cope and manage the condition.
OK, let's take you back now to our top story this lunchtime. In the last hour or so, Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, has announced that he is resigning. He's been under growing pressure after he ripped up that power-sharing agreement with the Scottish Green Party. Well, let's get the very latest and some final thoughts from our political editor, Chris Mason, who watched that resignation statement in Edinburgh. And Chris, a very significant moment in Scottish politics, but also potentially for UK politics as well.
Yeah, that's right, Ben. To sit there in Bute House in the last hour and listen to the First Minister was to see fallibility. Fallibility on a human level, fallibility on a political level. Because clearly Humza Yousaf wrestles with the consequences of his decision last week to effectively blow the Greens out of the door of the Bute House agreement, the arrangement between the SNP and the Greens in government here. With that, the response of the Greens that left the arithmetic for him impossible, basically, because he wasn't willing to do a deal with Alex Salmond's Alba party, and therefore he resigned before the numbers were guaranteed to lead to that outcome anyway. So, a big moment for the SNP, a big moment for Scotland, real turbulence in Scotland's governing party. And that matters wherever you're watching this lunchtime around the UK, because, as you may just have noticed, there is a general election around the corner. And if Labour can capitalise on SNP vulnerability in Scotland and translate that into Westminster seats for the Labour Party at the general election, the path to Downing Street is that bit easier for Keir Starmer. And turbulence in the SNP, everything else being equal, might make that prospect for Keir Starmer that little bit more straightforward. That's why this matters wherever you're watching around the UK. That's why it has consequences, yes, within Scotland, but beyond Scotland too.
Chris, many thanks for that. Chris Mason there, our political editor. All right, let's look at the latest weather forecast for you now. Here's Darren Bett.
Thanks very much, Ben. Well, it is going to be warmer for us this week. There's still going to be some rain around, mind you. But here across East Anglia and the southeast of England, it's a much better day. It's staying dry and there'll be some sunshine around too. Out to the west, though, we've got lower pressure heading in from the Atlantic and then stopping. But it is sweeping in all this cloud. And underneath that cloud, we've seen some rain as well. Some wetter weather to begin with earlier today across Northern Ireland, being replaced by sunshine and sharp showers. But that rain is pushing further into Scotland, still affecting western parts of England and into Wales. Further east, though, it's likely to stay dry. The sunnier skies more towards East Anglia, Lincolnshire and the southeast, and temperatures here reaching 17 or 18 degrees. Out to the west, we're still stuck at around 13 or 14 degrees as we were over the weekend. So wet weather to end the day then across some northern and western areas. It should become a bit drier with some clearer spells in Scotland, and we'll see it turning drier in Northern Ireland before we get some rain later. Still this cloudier zone across northern England, Wales to the southwest with more rain later on in the night. Clearer skies in the southeast, minimum temperature 6 or 7 degrees. Heading into tomorrow then, we've got more rain in western areas, some wet weather pushing back into Northern Ireland for a while. We'll see rain returning to Wales and the southwest of England. A little bit of rain for the far west of Scotland, otherwise it may well be dry, and we've got some sunshine further east. Cloud will increase in East Anglia and the southeast, could give 1 or 2 light showers. But with the southerly wind, that's where we're seeing the warmth. That warmth will push northward, so it's going to be a warmer day through the Midlands, Northern England and in Scotland, with temperatures of 16 or 17 degrees here. This weak weather front and weakening weather front will bring some rain northwards along the east coast overnight, but by Wednesday that should have moved away. And then we're going to find a few showers around on Wednesday, but also some sunshine as well. But there is some cloud and rain developing across the continent. That'll push over the English Channel towards the southeast later on in the day. But temperatures widely getting up to a more respectable 16 or 17 degrees. Could be cold and misty and murky though around the east coast of Scotland and the northeast of England, and that's because we're getting an easterly wind picking up. That's bringing in some warm air, but it's moving over the cold seas. We should, however, see some sunshine developing in Scotland on Thursday, northern England too, perhaps Northern Ireland for a while, but as you can see elsewhere there's a lot of cloud. Still the chance of some rain here and there, and it's always going to be cooler towards Wales and the southwest. The warmest weather is in the north, not for eastern Scotland, but in western Scotland, where temperatures could reach 20 degrees in the Highlands. Ben.
OK, Darren, thank you very much indeed. That is today's BBC News at 1. The news does continue here on BBC One, because now it is time to join our colleagues across the nations and the regions for a look at the news wherever you are. But from me and the 1 o'clock team, do have a very good afternoon.
very warm welcome to BBC London with me, Alice Salfield. On Thursday, Londoners will head to the polls for the mayoral election, with thousands of 18-year-olds getting the opportunity to vote for the first time. But will they choose to use their vote? And what are the issues they really care about? Our reporter Yasmin Rufo has been finding out.
As you guys are aware, there's an election coming up. So how many of you are registered to vote in
At a school in Wembley, students are talking about the upcoming mayoral election.
Can you write down on a piece of paper what you guys think the biggest issue in London is at the moment?
And they don't seem short of ideas on how to improve the capital.
Cost of living affects us a lot just because we don't have that much of a stable income, and it's everywhere. You see it in transport, you see it in like normal, even healthcare.
The biggest issue right now is the soaring house prices and the house crisis in general, and I would like to see the police taking knife crime more seriously.
Biggest issue I think is the cost of living 100%, because money is tighter nowadays because things cost more and you have to be more selective what you buy. Before I'd be able to get by with like £10 maybe on my oyster, but now it's looking more like you have to spend £7 a day, and as that adds up over time it becomes extremely costly.
Despite these students being able to list a lot of issues affecting London, most of them aren't that confident that the mayoral candidates will be able to solve them.
No, I don't really know much about the candidates. We're just like given false hope with it. Like they're like, yeah, but they don't really actually do much.
How confident are you that one of the mayoral candidates will be able to make a change for London?
A lot of people's lives are at stake, so I hope they can change that, but seeing how we are progressing, especially with inflation, I don't think they can.
I don't want to be presented with false promises or like maybe lies, or I want to be told the truth and I want to see action being taken.
So, have they decided whether they'll be voting?
And I've decided to vote because I wish to be seen and I wish for my voice to be heard.
I haven't decided to vote because I didn't know if I was supposed to register, and secondly, I'm not really interested in like politics.
At another school down the road, first-time voters are meeting with Love Island star Sharon Gafka, who's part of a new campaign to get young people to vote.
I was super surprised to find out that 70% of young people actually vote on reality TV shows like Love Island, but only 37% are planning to vote in the up-and-coming general election. Once that season's over, your vote kind of doesn't mean anything. The people that cast their vote at the last election or at the referendum, that has tangible impacts on our futures, and we're still feeling that impact now. I've always talked about how I felt like politics wasn't for me, but actually politics is for everyone. If you don't do politics, politics will do you.
Yasmin Rufo, BBC London.
Remember, you can head over to our website to find out lots more about the election, as well as watch a special BBC London audience debate with mayoral candidates. A serving Met police officer has been given a 12-week jail sentence, suspended for 12 months after being found guilty of assault. PC Jonathan Marsh was responding to an emergency call in Romford when he mistook the man who dialed 999 for the suspect. During the arrest, captured on police body cam, he punched Rasika Atanyaki in the back of the head. He's also been ordered to pay £1,500 in victim compensation and complete 150 hours of unpaid work. Border Force officers at Heathrow Airport have started their 4-day strike over plans to bring in new rotas. Their union claims it would see around 250 staff forced out of their jobs at passport control. But the Home Office says the changes will give staff more certainty and improve the service. Heathrow says most journeys should be unaffected, but there could be longer queues. A record number of people have applied to take part in next year's London Marathon. Event organisers said they'd received more than 840,000 applications, smashing the previous record of 578,000 set by last year's ballot. Just over a week ago, more than 53,000 people finished the course, raising £67 million for charities so far. Next, London Zoo opened its doors nearly 200 years ago. This photo from 1929 shows one of its zookeepers getting a kiss from a camel. And it's these sorts of memories, along with memorabilia, that the zoo wants to gather from the public to help celebrate its bicentenary in a special exhibition. Tolu Adeoye has the story.
The zoo is still so popular, you'd have to climb a tree to get a bare idea of the crowd.
For nearly 2 centuries, London Zoo has been attracting visitors keen to see its creatures, big and small.
To this day, it's one of the capital's most popular tourist attractions, a must-do on many visitors' lists.
So we have a wide range of items in the archive.
Much of the zoo's history is captured at the ZSL Library and Archive.
A first edition Origin of Species by Darwin, a paper bag from the 1960s, a 1930s ostrich egg. We've had a library and archive since our foundation in 1826, and we've been documenting our history for the last 200 years. You know, ZSL, it's not just two zoos. We do a wealth of scientific work, conservation projects, and it's important that these memories and records are preserved for future generations.
Now, ahead of the zoo's 200-year anniversary in 2026, there's a call to the public to submit their memories and memorabilia to help chart the ZSL's history.
We're looking for photos, footage, memorabilia, anything that will help us bring our history to life in 2026.
It will all go into a special exhibition which will be called the History Hive.
We've been connecting people to wildlife through our two zoos for nearly 200 years, and we really feel like they're as much a part of our history as we are a part of theirs. We want stories from the local community as well as stories from people who might remember important moments in our history.
So if you have anything from vintage zoo toys to historic tickets, maps, or if you simply want to share a memory of a visit, the zoo wants to hear from you to help mark its very special anniversary. Tolu Adeoye, BBC London.
Now, I want to show you what was the most watched video on the BBC News website and app this morning. It's a plane full of hundreds of giraffes of the stuffed toy variety, which is taken to the skies to raise money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. Take a look.
Did at any point you think it was real giraffes that you were going to be?
No, luckily the whole connection came out because I noticed they were flying the same cuddly giraffe as I was flying with my daughter, so actually there was never any doubt that it was cuddly giraffes. I love having these guys with me when we go flying, making everyone smile as they've seen us around the Voyager building with all these giraffes. It's nice to lift everyone's spirits and give everyone a nice event to watch.
This is definitely the most unusual flight. Usually the passengers are asking a lot more questions. They've not asked any yet, but we'll see how the night goes.
The reason we're flying all these giraffes is set up from one giraffe that my daughter Louise had when she was very unwell at Great Ormond Street. Sadly, Louise passed away, and her best friend was this Geoffrey the giraffe. So in her legacy, we've got a little giraffe going on adventures. As much as Geoffrey's travelling, Louise is travelling with him. Means a hell of a lot to have the support from so many amazing people, especially from the Royal Air Force. So yeah, it's heartwarming.
A very special journey. Now it's feeling milder today. Let's get more on the weather with Katerina Christodoulou.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. It's not been too bad so far today. We've seen a lot of dry weather around with some sunshine. Now we'll hold on to those sunny spells through this afternoon. It'll stay largely dry, but at times feeling quite breezy. So looking at gusts today of around 30-35 miles per hour, but in that sunshine feeling mild, so highs of around 17 or 18 degrees. So through this evening, it'll be dry with clear skies. We'll hold on to those lengthy clear spells through the rest of the night. Those winds a little bit lighter, and under those clear skies, our temperatures will fall away to around 5 or 6 degrees. So tomorrow morning it'll be a dry and bright start to the day. A little more cloud will start to pull in as we head through the afternoon, perhaps introducing 1 or 2 showers, but there'll still be some sunny spells around, and again at times it'll feel breezy. But temperatures again 17-18 degrees, so it will stay mild through the day on Tuesday. Wednesday it'll be largely cloudy through the day, and we are expecting some rain. I think that rain more so towards the end of the afternoon and through the evening, but again temperatures around 18 degrees. And then Thursday slightly cooler but plenty of cloud through the day. It should stay largely dry.
That's all from the lunch team. Riz will be here at 6:30. Thanks for watching and have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.
I will be representing the UK at the Eurovision Song. The Eurovision ride is wild, and the time has come. Ready to get dizzy with excitement? The Eurovision Song Contest semi-final, Tuesday the 7th of May at 8 on BBC One and iPlayer.
This is where the wave of ambition hits the rock of reality. Your sesame cracker's burning.
I need to stop shaking.
Absolutely ace.
I'm so happy, I just want to dance.
The 20th series of MasterChef. Watch all this week's episodes now on BBC iPlayer.
We have a witness, a stowaway on your ship with a man who just disappeared.
The further we are away from home, the more they kind of touch us.
None of this feels right to me.
With so much at stake.
You've made us weak!
We are supposed to have each other's back. Where do their loyalties lie?
Wade is my witness.
Can't tell you that.
Granite Harbour starts Friday at 8 on BBC One and iPlayer.
I'm trying. I'm making the same mistakes over and over again. Do not think of taking that girl away from me because she's all I've got left.
Everyone here just wants to make some money.
I'm scared. So am I, mate.
The new series of The Responder starts Sunday at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.